Hi, Jayaprakash. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we can start.
Okay, sir. Hello, good evening to all. I am Jayaprakash Sharma, area business, and it's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Benny Gupta and all others to this webinar on topic novel formulation in the treatment of breast cancer. Dr. Benny Gupta is senior consultant and medical oncologist, medical and oncologist from the Specialty Hospital, Delhi. And this session would be of approximately 40 minutes. And I request all please keep your mic on mute, and if any questions they can write in chat box or can ask after the session. Sir, kindly start, sir.
Okay, thanks. So good evening, everyone, and thanks to all the audience and Freshness for giving this option of discussing with the resident. So today's topic is novel formulations in the treatment of breast cancer. This was a topic given by the company people, although the slides are initially very basic about the breast cancer treatment schema, and still we can take home some important points. And later on in the end, there is a different newer formulation of conventional paclitaxel, which we are currently using also in a lot of patients. But what are the benefits and what is the literature about that? So, so before starting as I said earlier also in most of the CME's webinar. So before that, demographic profile, that Globocan data. As per the Globocan, breast cancer is the second most common cancer worldwide. So this is worldwide data. And mortality-wise, it comes in the number ranking of 5th. If we see the incidence-wise, lung cancer is 11.6% of all new cancer cases, and breast is also 11.6% of all new cancers. So approximately similar in if it's in percentage, but number-wise 2.094 million, 2.089 million. So number-wise, lung is slightly more. So in female, we can say breast cancer is the most common, and in males, lung cancer is the most common. But if we take together, so it comes the second in number. In mortality, lung is obviously most common cause of mortality, cancer mortality, and breast comes the 5th, 6.6% of all the cancer-related death. Sorry. Yeah, treatment modality of, if you talk about treatment modality of the breast cancer patients, this is the broadly divided into, we all know that as a resident, first year resident also, that surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, hormone therapy, targeted, supportive. So these are very basic slide in which we can summarize the treatment of the breast cancer as a whole with different permutation and combination, whether surgery upfront or chemotherapy upfront or targeted therapy upfront. So it depends on the tumor size and various clinical situation of the patient. So targeted therapy, we use breast cancer, we all know that trastuzumab, pertuzumab, TDM1, Kadcyla, and lapatinib. So this everolimus is wrongly written, I think, over here. And hormone therapy also, estrogen receptor blocker, tamoxifen, raloxifene, fulvestrant, aromatase inhibitor, anastrozole, letrozole, and exemestane. So these are hormone therapy. And if we have special cases of breast related tumor, like it is not an invasive disease carcinoma, so we may have DCIS sometimes, that is called ductal carcinoma in situ. Clinically, we might come across patients have similar sort of breast lump and appearing hard on palpation. and clear-cut tumor, but still on biopsy, sometimes we get the DCIS. So even after surgery, complete surgery, we get the result as a DCIS. So we should know the treatment of DCIS, LCIS also as well. So for DCIS, if we are sure before surgery, then BCS is in some patients. If we are sure about DCIS upfront, if not, then mastectomy. In fact, it means that axillary resection is not required in DCIS patients. And in some patients, we can go for radiation therapy also, and even hormone therapy if ER/PR is positive. Chemotherapy is definitely not required for DCIS as well as LSCIS, both. So for LCIS, classic tamoxifen, or for some post-meal raloxifene or aromatase inhibitor can be used sometimes, or bilateral prophylactic mastectomy is rarely used for LCIS classical version. So for even for pleomorphic, chemo prevention can be done for some patients. So these are about the in situ phase of the breast cancer. So if it is stage 1 and 2, early stage, and it is done in 3 parts. Stage 3, locally advanced. Clinically, we label it as, if we cannot label correctly, T1, T2, T3, T4, TNM classification, or we are not very well sure about the TNM. So sometimes we divide into early, locally advanced, or metastatic cancer. So in 3 classes, treatment schema is slightly different. In the sense that locally advanced, we go for NSAT, we know that, neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and then afterwards surgery. For metastatic, only chemotherapy or hormone therapy. Surgery is not required. So early stage mastectomy, it needs to be done, and then systemic adjuvant treatment, post-operative chemotherapy, hormone, anti-HER2 based on the tumor testing afterwards. Locally advanced as a preoperative systemic therapy, usually chemotherapy is given. Neoadjuvant radiotherapy doesn't have any role in the management of breast carcinoma. Metastatic, particularly for brain metastasis, local skin recurrences, or isolated bone metastasis, radiation therapy is used. For bone mets, IV phosphoramide also used to reduce the bone loss and bone pain. So these are the basic treatments options available, and which we can use in our breast cancer patient. I'm sorry, slides are not. Yeah. So apart from previous slide, I should broadly outline this tumor treatment, and this is a preferred adjuvant treatment. What should be the best choice combination? They have tried to demarcate in the form of if axillary lymph nodes are positive. So upper one is showing the that premenopausal patients, and lower one shows the postmenopausal patients. And in those both scenario, they are divided into axillary lymph node negative or positive, negative or positive. Premenopausal lymph node negative, tamoxifen with or without chemotherapy. Trastuzumab if HER2 is positive. Sometimes pertuzumab is used. Chemotherapy is the option if the ER/PR is negative. Hormone we cannot use in ER/PR negative patients. Similarly, in postmenopausal, more or less here, aromatase inhibitor takes place of tamoxifen. If lymph nodes are positive, chemotherapy has got the upper hand to be given, despite ER/PR is 100% positive. But if lymph nodes are positive, we tend to use the chemotherapy in adjuvant setting. And trastuzumab plus pertuzumab if HER2. If we have used in the neoadjuvant, there are the studies which shows that the de-escalation options are there. And if patient has got good path CR, we can omit the pertuzumab and then continue with the trastuzumab. This is a newer concept which is coming up in after some of the published trial. Whenever any patient of breast cancer comes to us in the OPD, after testing histopathology, we should try to label among either of these 4, like we mentioned, TNBC, HER2 type. So similarly, we should have a habit of writing luminal A or luminal B. which sometimes we don't write. So luminal A, we know that ER, PR positive, low tumor burden, high tumor burden. HER2 may be positive or negative in luminal B. So depending on that, there is a different treatment schema, either hormone chemo or anti-HER2. Triple negative, we are left with no option than chemotherapy only. So what are the challenges which limits our drug therapy in the management of any cancer, not only breast cancer, in fact? So they have divided in these forms. Category related suboptimal biodistribution of the drug in the body, that is too little drug in the tumor tissue, means that very little drug or suboptimal dose is reached to the target tissue, and too much in the healthy tissues where this is wasted and moreover cause the higher toxicity, like we get hair fall, mucositis, skin toxicity, neutropenia. So these are all because of drugs distribution much to the healthy tissues. Category 2, which is related to the poor response to the drug even if it reaches to the tumor. Third category, they have defined inherent properties of the drug or drug combination itself. So there are challenges which we were facing in the usual drugs. So the solution provided by the nano. So nowadays there is an era of nanoparticle which are used in the chemotherapeutic modification. So we have come across a lot of drugs in last 5 years or so. Like if we talk about challenges, insufficient specificity for the breast cancer. So nanoparticle type medicine has got passive targeted and active targeted to increase the tumor drug level and thereby reduce the non-healthy tissue level to decrease the side effects. So inefficient access of drug to metastatic site like brain and bone. We say that chemo drugs are not going to the brain and bone, but some nanomedicine inherently may improve brain or bone penetration, although this is a hypothesis still. So may improve brain and bone penetration. Undesirable pharmacokinetics such as quick clearance and short half-life. And sometimes there is a pegylation model. We know that like we are using pegylated growth factor. Similarly, there are some chemotherapeutic which are pegylated to extend the circulation time, dwell time into the blood circulation, so that more drugs are available to the target tissue level. Dose-limiting toxicity of anti-cancer drugs or experience, for example, surfactant, organic solvents. So these are the challenges. And by this, increased tumor specificity as above, controlled drug release from the nanocarriers can happen. So these are some of the challenges. If we talk about category 2 at the cellular level, means increased drug efflux transport. So less drug available at the remains at the target level. So how does this help by nanoparticle, nanomedicine? Passive and active targeting both may enhance endocytosis. Some nanoformulation may inhibit drug efflux mechanism. Co-delivery of agent that target drug resistance. Important thing is that it inhibits the drug efflux mechanism. Second point, drug resistant tumor microenvironment level, lower pH, hypoxia, cancer microenvironment, crosstalk, and so on. So this is one of the mechanisms which hinders the good efficacy of chemo drugs. So this can be overcome by targeting tumor microenvironment, use of stimulus responsive nanoformulation such as pH responsive devices. Right. Then third is targeting cancer stem cell. And last category which they have mentioned in challenges, undesirable pharmacokinetic property, pharmaceutical property like low aqueous solubility and poor in vivo stability. So many nanocarriers can achieve drug solubilization and can protect unstable drugs. And last is careful optimization, dosing schedule and sequence, and use of nanocarrier to co-deliver multiple. So these are all pharmacologics explanation of these drugs. So what is basically nanomedicine? It is one of those promising new options. And if we talk about size, what is actually nano? Although devices of 100 to 200 nanomoles are often considered nanomedicine in practice, but it refers to biomedical material with at least one dimension below 100 nano. I think this is nanomoles only, I have to check. Below 100 nm. So examples we are using in practice: liposomal doxorubicin, liposomal daunorubicin, liposomal. Some other drugs are also there. Nanoparticles, misliforms, dendrimers, nanotubes. These are not available with us. So these three formulations we are using. And these are made up of diverse materials, including either lipids, phospholipid, polymers, proteins, inorganic material, and combination of that. They provide the large surface area to volume ratio of nanocarriers, thereby to manipulate their surface property for improved treatment. Moreover, by entrapping in or binding onto nanocarrier the therapeutic agents, which is the main targeting agents, it can also gain better stability, increased solubility, and controlled release kinetics. And widely used for breast cancer, they are widely used for breast cancer. We can have ample number of studies for breast cancer alone regarding these drugs, liposomal doxorubicin and nanoparticle paclitaxel alone, either alone or in combinations, various combinations. So these are the two things which I have been using in carcinoma breast. If we talk about conventional paclitaxel, which is a member of the taxane family, most commonly used drug, broad spectrum anti-tumor activity, effectiveness in both solid and disseminated tumor, crucial role in the ovarian cancer, breast cancer, non-small cell lung cancer, not only in those, but more or less in each and every solid malignancy, they have some role, either in the first line setting or second line setting, they have got some role. So it has got poor aqueous solubility, that is one limitation. And along with that, they has the chemophore, which is a vehicle composed of polyoxyethylated castor oil, that is called chemophore, and dehydrated alcohol to enhance drug solubility. So what does this chemophore do? It is not an inert, and it adds to the toxic effect of the paclitaxel. And not moreover that hypersensitivity reactions are known to happen because of this chemophore only, and it is also associated with hyperlipidemia, abnormal pattern. It requires special DEHP tubing. So this is a word which we should remember. DEHP means non di-2-ethyl hexyl phthalate. So basically we can remember with DEHP tubing. And inline filter for the infusion, which we call a codone set. Codone set has got special tubing as well as filter itself. Chemophore can cause neurotoxicity, respiratory difficulty, and vasodilation. It alters the pharmacokinetic profile of the drug, which results in reduction in plasma clearance of paclitaxel. So reduced availability of paclitaxel to the target level because of chemophore. So this is one picture which shows that how does this help in chemophore. Paclitaxel, suppose these are paclitaxel, this is a blood sample level on the left side. Right side, this is a blood sample level plasma plus Taxol. So here Taxol is entrapped into the hydrophobic interior of the chemophore micelle. So these are chemophore micelle, and here it is entrapped, so which diminishes the free fraction of paclitaxel. Thereby it is less available for the distribution to the tumor cell. So it is entrapped into the blood only among the chemophore. What are these various formulations? Liposomes, albumin-bound paclitaxel, polymer drug conjugates, and polymeric micelle, nanoparticle paclitaxel. We have been using liposomal, we have been using albumin-bound paclitaxel, we have been using this micelle form, which is nanoparticle paclitaxel, comes with the name of Nanoxel, which we have been using since last 4 or 5 years in most of the malignancies. How does this help? Because there is an enhanced EPR effect, that is called enhanced permeability and retention effect. Whenever drug is introduced, so these small things are the drug particle, nanoparticle, and when they reach to the tumor site, they are leaky endothelial membrane, and there is a lot of gap in between through which they enters and reach to the tumor cell, and because of poor lymphatics, they retain over there, accumulate over there in the tumor cells, thereby causing the killing of those cancer cells. So this is the mechanism of enhanced permeability and retention effect of the nanoparticle. It is obviously chemophore free formulation. There is no chemophore involved with this, and average size is less than 100 nanomole. It is approved for metastatic breast cancer, ovarian cancer, non-small cell lung cancer, AIDS-related Kaposi sarcoma. And it consists of amphiphilic polymer and feature is something like this capsule. Inner side is the inner hydrophobic core where paclitaxel or some drug molecule are secured. Green one is the paclitaxel. So this is the structural formulation of the nanoparticle paclitaxel. When we infuse the drug, so drug delivered in the form nanomicelle, size less than 100 nanomole, easily pass through endothelial cells, reaches tumor cells, get endocytosed by tumor cells, and pH-dependent release of paclitaxel is there, and use there on inherent mechanism, antimicrotubule, and induction of apoptosis, death of cancer cell, leading to death of cancer cell. So uptake of paclitaxel, there are three molecules which we have been using last I would say 10-15 years. Conventional paclitaxel, which is the standard we have been using in Texel. Abraxane is the nanoparticle albumin bound paclitaxel. We call it as NAB paclitaxel. That is Abraxane, which was the research original molecule. We have used Abraxane quite a lot of many years. I think during my residency, during my DNB, we have the availability of Abraxane, but now it's not available. Means it is not an original molecule. We have an Indian version of this NAB paclitaxel, which we are using. And then another is the nanoparticle micelle form, which is nanoxal. And different kinetics of uptake of paclitaxel in different forms. We see the time point line. At different time point of line, that Abraxane has got the maximum uptake, but nanoxal has also got in some time point of line better than the Abraxane. So it is, in fact, nanoparticle micelle paclitaxel is better than conventional, but somewhere in some situation it is not as good as NAB paclitaxel. There is a table which shows what is the difference between NAB paclitaxel and nanoparticle paclitaxel. This is albumin bound, therefore I call it as NAB pacli, and it is nanomicelle using a polymeric carrier. Size here is slightly more, 130 nanomole. Here less than 100 nanomole. Dose 260 milligram per meter square over 30 minutes, 3 weekly. Here dose is less, 220 milligram per meter square over 1 hour infusion. Either it is given 3 weekly and high dose, still infusion is only 1 hour. On the other hand, in the conventional pacli, we have 3 hour infusion, but in those NAB pacli it is even less, 30 minutes. Nanoparticle it is 1 hour. Response rate is higher, 40% as compared to 33%. And side effect profile is less, 80% neutropenia here, 40%, 70% neuropathy here, 50%. So altogether, all side effects are lesser with the nanoxal. So there are some studies like nanoparticle albumin paclitaxel neoadjuvant chemotherapy breast cancer. So in early, this was the starting period when this was approved for the metastatic breast cancer and has been included into the NCCN guideline. This NAB pacli as a single agent. So this was a study where 21 studies were taken. This was a meta-analysis where more than 2,000 patients were included and 3 of which were randomized trial out of these 21 studies. So aggregate PathCR was 32%. Sorry, this was a neoadjuvant setting. So locally advanced breast cancer they were used, and PathCR was 32%, which was very good in number. And hypersensitivity was more common with conventional than the NAB paclitaxel. This is an effective cytotoxic drug in neoadjuvant treatment for breast cancer, especially for aggressive tumor in terms of PathCR. So we can see that response rate wise, outcome wise, this is definitely better than the both forms. Either NAB pacli and nanoparticle are better than the conventional paclitaxel in outcomes also and side effect profile also. So there was a phase 2 randomized study of chemophore-free polymer nanoparticle formula paclitaxel in women with locally advanced metastatic breast cancer after failure of anthracycline. So this was an Indian study, and all the authors, I know them, they're all Indians in different parts of the states. And in this study, this was published long back in 2013, Asia Pacific Journal, and author was Ranade et al. And this was a purely Indian study, and they are divided into 3 arms. All the patients are MBC, metastatic breast cancer. after failure anthracycline failed advanced breast cancer. And the 3 arms are, one is chemophore wala and chemophore related, another is nanoparticle, which they have used 300 milligram per meter square dose, and another is 220 as said by the standard guideline. So these were the 3 arms for 6 cycle. And if we talk about the response rate, conventional Pacli 31% overall response rate, 40% with the nab-pacli 220, 40% nab-pacli 300. So means all the response rate, if we see, was equal in nab-pacli 220 or 300. Therefore, dose standardized was 220 milligram per meter square. And if we see the side effect profile, anemia was maximum, I think, in conventional Pacli, and then the even more in the 300. 220 has got least chances of anemia, neutropenia, leukopenia, and so all these myelotoxicity was least with the nab-pacli 220. So this is comparable in efficacy and has a better safety profile than conventional paclitaxel. So and it can be safely administered without pre-medication. We can use the without any dexamethasone, or because there is no hypersensitivity reaction involved. But obviously, if you are using with the other platinum drugs, so we have to use the pre-medication. But where we are using single agent nanoxal or nab-paclitaxel, we can avoid the we should avoid the pre-medications. So this is just the this is not important costing drug. So adverse drug profile of the nanoparticle versus conventional. So they appear to be similar from a statistical viewpoint over here, such as myalgia, paresthesia, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Although myelosuppression occurs with all these side effects appear to be equivalent as per these statistics. Myalgia and anorexia, however, tend to occur more frequently with nanoxal. Lack of hypersensitivity reaction despite skipping prophylactic pre-medication suggests that the nanoparticle formulation probably less allergic. Then there are some more studies which have shown that this is the only standard dose of nanoxal 220 milligram per meter square as compared to conventional Pacli of 175 milligram per meter square. I think this was also an Indian study by Senthil Rajappa and Dr. Doval Ulas. So this was from the RGCI and some people from the South India and even from the Eastern Calcutta. So pan-Indian study. This was also pan-Indian study. Basically, this is expert opinion, which was published in 2018. And based on this, they have said that nanoparticle polymer-based paclitaxel, 300 milligram per meter square, demonstrated a better overall response rate and clinical benefit compared to conventional Pacli of 175 milligram per meter square. Nanoxal at a dose of 220 milligram per meter shows a better efficacy than conventional. The incidence of musculoskeletal events, gastroenterotoxicity, skin subcutaneous toxicity were comparable in all the treatment arms. Overall, nanoparticle polymer-based paclitaxel formulation was well tolerated and could be safely administered without any pre-medication. So take home from this discussion is that breast cancer is mostly deadly and toughest to treat when metastasis occurs. Many sites are not even easily accessible. Designing nano formulation that can adequately penetrate all of these sites without causing excessive adverse event is of critically important. So this is the preferred agent, which is paclitaxel as per the newer guideline, and novel formulation has also been included. And this novel formula was developed to eliminate chemophore from the conventional one. Nanoparticle drugs are well tolerated, can be safely administered without any pre-medication. Though this is the biggest advantage in some of the patients who have got uncontrolled diabetes and all that. So thanks overall.